Hello everybody, this is Tim here again, here another movie review, this time for Prey 2022. Now, the Predator franchise has kind of had a tricky run. Just to throw out my ratings here for the other films, I really enjoyed the first Predator. I pretty much really love it, actually. It's easily a 4 out of 4 film. It's a masterpiece. Predator 2 has grown on me. I used to think it was just kind of good, standard. Uh, I like it a little better now. It's still not great, but I think it is a good sequel. Predators, I think, is better than Predator 2, but not by a big landslide or anything. I think Predator 2 and Predator 3 are pretty much close to even in quality. I think both are good, serviceable, fun Predator films, but nothing amazing or great, and not masterpieces like the first film. The Predator sucked. Like when I first watched it, I was like, it's passable because I'm a Predator fan. When I started rewatching it multiple times, it got worse and worse the more times I watched it. It is terrible. The comedy in that film, it is awful. Alien versus Predator, a lot of people hate it, and I can see why because they're comparing it to the original Predator and the original Alien. But if you just watch it as a film by itself for what it is and not you think it should be, it's an all right B movie, 2.5 time waster. Alien versus Predator Requiem, you can't even see what's happening in that flick. It sucks. Now that brings us to Prey. I'll go ahead and say it. A lot of people that have watched this said this could have went to theaters and probably should have. After I watched it, I agree. It could have. It should have. This is a good-looking movie. It's kind of a much smaller story, feels that way, and more about the drama and stuff, so to build the characters and everything, which works in the movie's favor. But at the same time, you can tell it has a good budget behind it, and this should have went to theaters. This could have easily have played in theaters with no problem whatsoever, and I think it would have easily have made its money back because it probably didn't cost that much. Yeah, it's called Prey to pretty much, because the first one's called Predator and all that, and this is pretty much a prequel because it takes place in the past. You actually have the gun or whatever that was given to Danny Glover at the end of Predator 2 show up here. They don't show how it eventually makes its way to the Predator, and maybe that's the director's idea. He wants to do a sequel to this or whatever that shows how the Predator eventually gets that gun, which is kind of neat. If we do get a sequel, depending on how this movie does on Hulu, which I think it'll do pretty good because it's getting really great reviews. And I'm not someone who just goes by something just because critics say it. I make up my own mind about movies. And for me personally, this is a 4 out of 4. This was an awesome flick. It's at points, it's almost as good as the original Predator. As a whole, though, it's not as strong as the original Predator. The main actress, whose name's like Midhunter or something like that, who plays the star here. She's pretty much this character who is a chick, and a lot of people are just automatically, since I saw the preview, people who are like anti woke or whatever, they're just jumping on this movie saying it's gonna be woke, it's gonna be woke because there's a chick in it. There's nothing in this movie that's woke at all. Like the chick, she's presented as it's not because she's a girl that they don't want her to hunt in the movie. It's just because they just don't think she's any good at hunting. They just don't have any faith in her. It has nothing to do with the fact that she's a chick. But and she does actually need training throughout the movie and to become stronger and tougher. To learn what she's fighting and all that to prove herself. Because at first, when she does actually try to hunt something, this lion, she fails, but she does manage to wound it. But she does fail. Like she messes up a lot. Like they go to show you through the movie, this is a very flawed protagonist, and she has to become tougher and better as the movie goes along. The guy who plays her brother in this, I actually think was a stronger actor than she was. He was great. She does a great job too, but he has a stronger screen presence. I can see this guy going places in terms of movies. But yeah, you could have rewritten this movie to just center the whole film on him. I will say this: there are weaknesses to the movie, like the whole idea of this. They're not wanting to believe that she can be a hunter and all that. It is kind of a rote story, but once you get into it and everything kicks off, and this movie does a great job at just building the character and the drama and everything, and just setting her up and showing the predator and stuff like fighting animals. Like when the predator comes to the earth, he's kind of like a prehistoric predator almost. He has like this skull looking mask or whatever, and he targets people. And he doesn't shoot lasers, he shoots like arrows, which is pretty cool. It's cool to see like a more ancient predator and all that. And he looks bigger than like the standard, more sleek looking predator, like from the first movie, I think. He looks kind of like he's got more muscle on him almost. But he has like a bigger face. It's a pretty cool looking predator. I would say that in terms of like pure meanness and all that, this is probably the scariest predator, maybe, out of all the films. But he starts fighting animals and stuff when he comes to Earth. He takes out a snake. Neat little fight. The snake just charges at him to try to whoop his ass, and he slices it and guts it. He takes the heads, of course, of everything he kills. He gets in a fight with this wolf, and the wolf doesn't go down that easy. Like, the wolf puts up a fight, but he manages to take it down. And, of course, he gets in a fight with a bear that you see in the trailer. And what you don't see in the trailer is that the bear kind of, beats up on the predator's ass for a little bit. He wounds him. But the predator manages to, overpower him eventually and take him down, of course, because he's got all the weapons and shit. But it's a good fight. But yeah, and then of course he eventually sees who the top dogs are in the place, who the best warriors, and that's the Comanche Indians or whatever. And he gets in a fight with some of them, and it's a pretty cool fight. They're able to like hold their own for a little bit because they are warriors and fighters, but at the same time, the Predator, of course, overpowers them with his technology and just his pure strength. Like he's slinging the suckers around like rag dolls when he finally gets a hold of them and just starts cutting them into pieces. I will say this: the movie does like kind of pull away sometimes during some of the violence. It's meant to be like artistic, and most part it does work because you're invested in the movie, but it pulls away and it's like an artistic shot where you see in the distance of like him pulling the person's head up and stuff after he cuts their head off. But I'll say this, the movie kind of does it a little bit too much to where it does start to become a little bit of a problem a little bit later on. You run into like these French guys or whatever who are there to like pretty much take the land and all that, and they also want to kill the predator and everything because it's been killing their people supposedly, but they just kind of come out of nowhere. They're almost here just to elongate the screen time of or the run time of the movie and to have more action. But I will say this, when action actually does happen and the Predator's like taking them all out with their axes and stuff and everything, it's pretty cool. The chick has this dog with her also who, he kind of disappears for big chunks of the movie, but then he'll come back and he really does like help out. By the end of the movie in the final battle, he's like running, bringing the chick's axe to her, and it's not like done in a really cheesy way or anything. By the time you get to the end of the movie, you're invested in the film and you buy into it. And she grabs the axe like out of its mouth and uses it to like cut the Predator's legs and stuff and bring him down, knocks him down like this, almost like quicksand type stuff or whatever, and then uses. I will say this: how she defeats him in the final last hit is a little weak because the Predator is getting ready to shoot at her again after he's pulled his stuff up out of the mud. But she's got his like own helmet that she took, and she knows that's where his weapons are, controls his weapons because she sees him do it. And she's got it like rigged up and all that, and when he shoots it, it like causes the arrow to come back and hit him in the head because it pretty much because the mask or whatever that he wears is like a skull type thing and it's like a targeting system, and it pretty much targets him because it's facing him and it kills him, which I'm like, that's kind of a little bit too elaborate of a plan for a Comanche girl. I do like the fact though that they do add in the movie that it's not because she's the strongest or anything. They never in this movie try to make it seem like she can like beat the Predator in a fair one-on-one kung fu fight or anything. Like, she struggles throughout this entire movie to beat this Predator, very much struggles. She almost dies like multiple times. They do introduce the gun or whatever from Predator 2. Um, and it comes off like this French dude or whatever who wasn't like as ruthless as the other ones, other characters or whatever. And I thought maybe something was going to be done with him, but then he just kind of gets killed. So I was like, it's kind of weird. She takes this berry stuff or whatever that causes her body temperature to go down, and that's what causes the Predator not to be able to see her. And she figures that out partway through the movie when this she's trying to help this dude or whatever and gives him some of the stuff. It's like medicine, and it causes the Predator not to be able to see him. And that was the French dude I was talking about. But the Predator accidentally steps on him, he screams, and then the Predator kills him, which was pretty damn funny. But at the same time, though, it felt like he was going to be a little bit something more, but they don't really do nothing with him. And then the girl, they do drop one homage out of the whole movie to the original Predator or whatever. And like when they're tied up, the French people have the brother and the main girl or whatever, like held hostage. They're using them as bait to lure the Predator out so they can take it out. And the dude, she's like, it's bleeding, and he's like, if it bleeds, we can kill it, which was pretty funny because up until then, the movie had not had any references to the first Predator at all. So they finally threw one in by the end towards the climax of the movie, and it worked. It didn't feel like overkill. It was pretty cool throwing it in there. Yeah, easily the best Predator sequel. It's not as good as the first movie, but in terms of sequels, it would go Predator 1, this movie, Predators, Predator 2, last place, The Predator, which is not even really worth watching. Hell, if you want to count AVP, I'd put AVP 1 before The Predator. And the only movie worse than The Predator is probably AVP Requiem, just because you can't see anything that's going on. She managed to take the Predator out the end, like brings its head back, and that's what proves her to the group and everything. But like I said, there's nothing woke in this movie. Anybody who just thinks this movie's woke just because it has a woman in it, you're just being stupid and narrow-minded. I'm sorry. If that's the only thing that just makes you think this movie has an agenda because of that, you're being stupid. Or you're just somebody who's so paranoid about like woke stuff in movies or whatever that you just see it everywhere just because it happens to have a female in it and not a man. Like, in no point in this movie do they show that she's like more badass than the Predator. She beats the Predator by being crafty because she's smart. She's more clever than the rest of her tribe. That and a little bit of luck, which is what every other person beat the Predator with. Nobody has ever beaten the Predator in a brute force match. Not once does she like overpower the Predator with a friggin' kung fu kick or something. It never happens. And then multiple times in the movie, she gets in a fight with some of the other Indians, and they like punch her in the face and knock her out. They never show her to be like some kind of brute strength fighter. It's her ingenuity and her intelligence that enables her to take down the Predator, which works. Her and her dog survive. The dog is really cute. She comes back at the end with the Predator's head and the pistol or whatever she gives to her Indian tribe. And we don't really see how the pistol is going to like end up with the Predator or whatever. as that's saved for a sequel. I heard somebody told me that there's like cave paintings at the end or whatever that show some kind of story or something or whatever. But I didn't really see anything. Maybe it's there and I just missed it. I don't know. But yeah, altogether, 4 out of 4 movie. It's maybe a little bit too long. It could have been sped up just a little. But yeah, altogether, great performances. Good performances by most of the cast, the side cast, and all that, and other actors. The Predator's great. Yeah, the Predator's back on the map. This clearly easily makes up for The Predator, and it's the best sequel thus far. And awesome movie. I highly recommend it if you're a Predator fan. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again. 4 out of 4.